couple years ago, I was in Seattle at a pub with some friends, and my phone rang. I turned it over and looked at it. It said, Chase Card Services. If you bank with Chase, you know that's not a phone call you ever want to get. Picked up the phone, and the operator on the other end of the line asked me a couple questions to confirm that it was me, my identity. You never need to know your mother's maiden name more than in that moment. And then they proceeded to ask me a very jolting question. They said, did you just purchase a $1,300 samurai sword in Tampa, Florida? Now, I don't know if you're shopping for my birthday present, which is coming in November. You're already thinking that far out. But just to clear the table, I don't collect samurai swords. I have no interest in samurai swords, nor have I ever bought a samurai sword. And so I told the operator on the other end of the line, and many of you in this room have had that experience. And even in catching it early, it's concerning, right? Because their response is, great, thanks for letting us know. We're going to lock up all your money for a couple days. Good luck. And you're like, thanks so much. Yeah, I now have no money. If you're raising kids right now, you hope to raise kids one day, you understand, you'll have this moment where you realize they're becoming you. They're stealing your identity. And that is an overwhelmingly burdensome reality. They're stealing your identity. While I hoped no one in Florida would steal my identity, I hope my kids would, the best parts of me at least. But I come to this reality, this conclusion that you and I will either be the inspiration for their life or the inspiration for their therapy. And so this project we've taken on is incredibly heavy. And if you hear anything all morning, let it be this one thing. Great parents always begin as healthy people. Great parents always begin as healthy people. It's the only place we can start. It's the only place from which we can be great parents. And so when I say healthy people, I mean that your children are observing your every move, your every word. What are they noticing? Are they noticing how you talk about people when those people aren't around? How you run down people maybe in the kitchen while you're preparing dinner with your partner or spouse? They notice the kind of media you consume. They notice how you handle disappointment and loss and frustration. They notice how much you drink. They notice if your faith is sincere. They notice if you're a person of integrity. And so this morning, very briefly, I just want to consider the type of people we are and the type of humans we're raising. Megan and I are trying to raise two amazing humans. Pax is 4 and Mac is 2. And before you have children, everybody knows how to do it. Like before you have kids, everybody's an expert and we all have opinions about what they should be doing, right? And then you have kids and you're like, my kid's never gonna see a TV screen. They're gonna be playing the cello and speaking Mandarin by the time they're 5. And all their toys will be wooden from a Scandinavian country that cares about plastics. And then you have kids and people are dropping off toys at your house and you're like, thanks so much, I appreciate it. We just became the kid Goodwill. It's hard raising kids. It really is. It's unbelievably difficult. And if you came from a family system that wasn't the healthiest, it's even more difficult. If the home you came from wasn't the healthiest, it's even harder. If you have your Bibles, we're gonna look at Deuteronomy chapter 6. I'll make 2 promises to you. Deuteronomy chapter 6, 2 promises. 1, this message is for everybody in this room, whether you are single, whether you're an empty nester, whether you are someone who's chosen not to have children, whether you're someone who don't have children yet, or you're in the thick of child raising, this message has implications for you as it does for me. 2, we're going to end our time with some very practical tips, some things you can do starting today, starting tomorrow, that I believe, that Doug believes, our staff believes, will make you an even better parent. The goal is not to be a perfect parent. None of us are going to be perfect parents, but we can be better parents. We can do better tomorrow than we did yesterday, and that's the goal. If we can get there, awesome. Deuteronomy chapter 6. I'll tell you where the context of the text we'll look at today and how it applies to what we're talking about. Moses is going to be speaking, and he's going to try to convey to the generation that's about to enter the promised land, knowing that his days are numbered, they have to know this. The generation that God brought out of Egypt by his mighty hand and disobeyed God or disbelieved God at Kadesh Barnea has died in the 40 years of wandering in the desert. They come back to the edge of the Jordan. Moses realized his days are numbered. He'll hand the mantle of leadership off to Joshua. And so these are his final parting words. The question he's trying to answer is, what does the next generation need to know to live faithfully into the promise and the story of God? Because I'm not going to be with them forever. So this is a distillation of, they can't miss this. They can't forget this. This is the most important thing for the next generation. Joshua, you listen, I'm not going to be around. Make sure this next generation that wasn't with us for all those other things, that they know, they remember, they walk in these things. Deuteronomy 6. Deuteronomy in the Latin literally means second telling. Second telling. The idea is that we will tell the story of God again to this next generation. Deuteronomy 6, starting in verse 1. These are the commands, the decrees, the law the Lord your God directed me to teach you to observe in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess, so that you, your children, and their children after them, notice there's 3 generations in sight there, that you, your children, their children after them, may fear the Lord your God as long as you live, by keeping all his decrees and commands that I give you, and so that you may enjoy long life. Hear, O Israel, and be careful to obey, so that it may go well with you, and that you may increase greatly in a land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you. Do you ever go to the grocery store and you just needed that one thing, and then you come out of the grocery store and you have a million things, but you get in the car and you didn't have the one thing? Like you go to the store just for laundry detergent or just for bread or eggs, and you come back and you have a million things in your car, and you're like, but I forgot the bread. Where are the eggs? That was the one essential. Moses says, this is what we can't forget to pass on. This is what we can't miss, people. This is unbelievably important. He breaks it into 3 categories. First, the commands of God. The commands of God. The Hebrew construction there is literally the entire Torah. The entire Torah. So not the 10 commandments, not the 613 commandments the Pharisees and Sadducees come up with, but make sure that the next generation understands the story of God as it pertains to God working and relating to the people of God. Make sure that your kids, if they know anything, know that God has been faithful to his people. God has been faithful to our family. God has been faithful through the generations. Make sure you convey this to your children. It's one of the reasons it's so important that you talk out loud with your kids about how God has protected, preserved, redeemed, restored, provided in your family. Oh, son, my mom and I thought we were done for here. We didn't know how we were going to pay that bill, how God was going to provide, and God answered. God delivered. We need to talk about with our children not only the story of God's work from Genesis to Revelation, but also the story of God's work in our life, in our family's life. Make sure they know the commands, the Torah, too, the decrees. Your Bible may say statutes. This literally means boundaries. I was reading a book the other day talking about disciplining children, and whether you spank, don't spank, timeout, no timeout. The point was, make sure your disciplining, it says, was about guidance and not punishment. Guidance and not punishment. That was helpful for me and instructive as my wife and I try to walk in that tension at times. Is our disciplining of our child about guidance and not about punishment? Make sure that the children know there are boundaries to what it means to be a holy people. There are boundaries. There are places we are to tread, and there are places we're not to go. There are fences to being the people of God. Your children need to know that. And third, the laws of the Lord, or your translation may say ordinances. Ordinances. Hebrew literally means there the process of discernment or the process of judgment. In more than 23 years of being a full-time middle school and high school pastor, no question was asked of me more frequently than how do I hear the voice of God? How do I know what God is saying to me? How do I know what God is telling me? And I can't imagine, as I think about my children, something more important to me is that my children can discern and hear the voice of God. That they would be able to listen and pray and discern the voice of God for their life. Moses says, you're about to go in. It's a generation who wasn't with us for all that other stuff. And make sure they know that God has been faithful. Make sure they know that God has protected your great-grandparents and your grandparents and us and now them. Make sure that your children know the story of God from the beginning. Make sure they know there are boundaries to being people of God. This is where we go. This is what we do. And this is what we don't do. This is where we don't go. And make sure they know how to hear the voice of God. Discern what he's saying to them. Whose responsibility is it? Go back to verse 1. These are the commands, the decrees, and the laws the Lord your God directed me to teach you. The you there is plural. It applies to the entire audience to which Moses is addressing right now. In chapter 5, Moses says, I want to remind you of the covenant we made at Sinai. But if you're following and you're up to snuff on your Exodus history, that generation that made the covenant has died. They're not the audience to which he's speaking. The implication is this: you are the people that have received the covenant, the promises of God, the story of God, and it's now your responsibility to pass it on to the next generation. It's y'all's job. It is imperative that we have moms and dads, caregivers that are passing on the faith, that are discipling their children. But it's also imperative that we understand as the church and the body of Christ, it is all of our responsibilities. That's why we need godly child care workers. That's why we need parents volunteering in youth ministry or adults volunteering in youth ministry. That's why we need people discipling young parents, because you have not done your time when your children leave your home. As long as you're a part of the body of Christ, it is our responsibility to pass on the faith to the next generation. A couple weeks ago, I was addressing a group of college and career students, and it happened to be after the decision by the Supreme Court of Roe v. Wade, and they had a number of questions, and we were processing and talking together. I said in that moment, and I still believe it with all my heart, that the easiest thing is for you and I to identify the pro-life candidate and vote for them in the privacy of the booth. It's easy to picket, it's easy to post. The real work is in finding a child and discipling them. The real work is finding a teenager, getting in their life, and trying to raise them up. You and I both can shout with a bullhorn on social media about the candidates we vote for, the political positions we hold, but unless you're willing to get in the life of a teenager, you may just be a resounding gong. A couple years ago, Fuller had a project called the College Transition Project, and it looked at 500 teenagers through middle school and high school who were very active in their church and claimed faith. And it followed them through college and their young adult years. And the goal of the project was to identify what are the common traits or characteristics of young adults who have stuck with their faith and been involved in church all these years. And the one salient, most important characteristic of all the young adults who stuck with their faith through college and their young adult years was this: they had 5 identifiable spiritual mentors in their life through their elementary school, middle school, and high school years. 5 people that they identified as people of faith on their team. So even if mom and dad are killing it at home, doing an amazing job discipling, praying, teaching them to read scripture, every single child in this church needs 3 more of you if you want to see them in these pews in 20 years. They need 3 more of you. Don't just be pro-life when we vote. Be pro-life when They're in our Sunday school rooms, and they're trying to figure out how to navigate life. The project writes this: kids need to develop a strong personal identity for faith, and their church community helps them do that. When kids know specific adults who are, quote, on their team, they have a web of support to catch them when they fall and keep them connected to faith for the long haul. We must use a scaffolding of relationships with extended family, neighbors, friends, coaches, teachers, childcare workers, youth volunteers to build a 5-to-1 ratio for each kid. And if they do, it will go well with them. They will increase and be blessed. Go back to verse 4. Hear, O Israel, Moses continues, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Verse 8, tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates. Verse 4 and 5 is what's known as the Shema in the Hebrew faith. It literally is a prayer that its significance is difficult to overstate. A faithful Orthodox home would recite this prayer 3 times a day. It appears in all 3 of the synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. It's on the lips of Jesus when asked what is the greatest commandment, and in the mouth of a non-believing Pharisee. This prayer is one of the most significant statements of Orthodox faith that we have. I want to point out just a couple words. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. The Lord is one. This is not a Trinitarian statement about Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It's a statement of uniqueness. There is no God out there like our God. There's no God. You've heard about what our grandparents suffered in Egypt with Baal and Ra and a pantheon of gods. You've heard what Babylon and their arsenal has of all those gods. No. No God is like our God. And our children need to hear us say that no accomplishment, no accumulation of wealth, no achievement, no notoriety is as important as orienting your life around the unique God that will cause your life to thrive, to be abundant. Our God is unique and unlike any other God. Love that God, that unique God, with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your strength. The word love there is devoid of emotion. The word love there is devoid of emotion. It speaks of commitment. Love God, not based upon your feelings, not when it feels good, not when it's easy. No, have a fidelity to God that transcends how you're feeling. And this must be what Paul means when he says our marriages are a picture of what God has done for us in redeeming us. That our marriages must transcend infatuation, which in the Latin means false heat. Our marriages must extend beyond when she looks attractive or I look attractive, when the heat is there physically, when things are easy. Our marriages need to be trophies of commitment. We made a covenant before God to stick this out for better or for worse. And so we're going to find a way forward. Your kids need to see that. And if you fight in front of your children, please apologize in front of your children. Forgive your partner in front of your children. They need to know that healthy conflict can happen. And then when conflict happens, dad's not leaving or mom's not leaving. They need to see marriages. They need to see marriages where we fight clean, we listen, we forgive, we reconcile. Marriage is based upon not emotion, but commitment. Love the Lord your God with a commitment, with a fidelity, with all of your heart, with all of your soul. That's our appetites, that's our desires. So how do we do this? Verse 6. These commandments, this charge that I give you today, it's to be on your hearts. There it means to reflect, to question, to rehearse. This last week, there's so many reasons. I'm so grateful for our preschool here. My kid is just thriving at preschool here, and I love it. I love our teachers and our administration, all that they do. So we're driving to school, and my kid's in the back seat, and he goes, Dad, this is my 4-year-old, Dad, where's God? Your dad happens to be a pastor, son. Your dad happens to have a master's degree in systematic theology. Let me tell you where God is. Son, God is everywhere you are. Dad, is God in heaven? Yes, son, God is in heaven. So God's not with us right now. No, God's with us right now, son. But I thought you said he's in heaven. He is in heaven, but he's also with us right now. So he's not in school. No, he's in heaven, at school, and with us right now. Son, God is with us, and he's in heaven, and just turn up, Raffy. Just let's sing Baby Beluga, and just get to school, man. It's 8:15. I don't even know what to deal with anymore. This has nothing to do necessarily with this point, but last week, my 4-year-old's on the kitchen floor throwing a tantrum, first of the day, not the last. And Mom and I are in the couch talking about something, or in the back bedroom. He goes, Dad, come here. And I said, son, Mom and I are talking. Dad, come here. Mom and I are talking, son. I'll be there in a moment. And then he starts screaming, Jesus wants you to listen to me. Mike. It's just like your mother. We've got to be rehearsing. We've got to be helping them process. All the great parents I know process with their children. My son had 3 best friends last year in school. And because of where his birthday fell, he didn't end up in their class this year. He's in a class where he didn't know anybody going in. So the first week of school was tears every day. Like, I want to be in that class. I want to be in that class. I want to be in that class. She's in that class. He's in that class. It would have been really easy for me. It's 8 in the morning. We all have to get to work. We all have stuff going on. It would have been really easy, and I have too often, to be like, hey, son, just get over it, man. Like, there are real problems in the world, right? Or to use the phrase like so many of our dads use, which is like, I'll give you something to cry about. But I tried so intentional. I tried to be intentional of like, Pax, tell me about it. Why are you disappointed? How do you think this means we should be praying? Do you think there's an opportunity for us to be making some new friends? And maybe God has a plan for you to be in that class instead of that class. To help our kids process. You and I would say, man, there are real problems in the world. But to our kids, that's the most important thing in the world right now. And I need them to know they are visible and valuable. And so we'll process. Dad'll be late because Pastor Doug and Scott are kind to Dad. Because we're going to process this. May these things be on your heart. Verse 7. Impress them on your children. Talk about them. Impress, it literally means to chisel, as into stone or granite. And if you got teenagers, you know they're like granite or stone. The idea is that we do it again and again and again. We stick at it. And you've probably had this experience before where you like tell your kids all the time, like this, and it just doesn't seem to sink in. And then like a week later, they'll come and be like, you know, Pastor Parker said this thing, and it was so good, it changed my life. You're like, I've been saying that for months. Do we need to grow a beard and get cool gauges? Like, what is it going to take? It's like chiseling granite, but make sure that your efforts don't require reciprocity, that your efforts don't require response. Just keep at it. Chisel granite. Chisel granite. Verse 8, tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on your doorframes and on your houses and on your gates. These are what you have seen in pictures of the westernmost wall, the Wailing Wall of Hasidic Orthodox Jews with these leather straps on their forearms with a box, or on their foreheads with a box. Inside is a little prayer, the Shema, Hear, O Israel. It's the idea is that anybody who would see me is obviously going to know that I wrap my life around a faith commitment. Should we wear phylacteries? Probably not. But if someone looked at your family's schedule or came into your home, I hope they would see that your family is ordered around a faith commitment, is ordered around a commitment to follow after Jesus and to form children who do the same. I told you at the beginning that I would offer you 4 practical tips It's supposed to be 3 originally, but I'm a pastor, right? So there's probably going to be a poem in here too. Christian Smith, the writer of, one of the writers for the Fuller College Transition Project, said, the best way to get youth more involved in and serious about their faith communities is to get their parents more involved in and serious about their faith communities. 4 ideas I'm processing right now. Number 1, reactions are educators. Listen to yours. Reactions are educators. Listen to yours. If good parents start as healthy people, your reactions to disappointment, frustration, sadness, loss, educate your children on how they should handle the same. This is probably your best barometer of how healthy you are right now. Your reactions, they're educators. Listen to them. And if you are married, if you have a partner, help them notice their reactions. I say help. Help them notice their reactions. Hey, you just seem a little tense today. You seem a little short with the kids. Your words have been a little kind of pointed today. Are you okay? Help them notice their reactions. Notice your reactions. It's probably the best barometer of how you're doing. Number 2, prioritize your emotional and physical presence this week. Prioritize your emotional and physical presence this week. Do you know why kids like grandparents so much? It's because they don't know how to text and they never skip pages in the book. Kids need to know they're valuable, that they're visible, that you're accessible. And you and I have had the same experience, I guarantee you, of coming home, being home, and being there physically but not being there mentally or emotionally. Like I'm still thinking about what happened today at work or what's going to happen tomorrow at work. And so I'm home physically, but I'm not there mentally. I'm not there emotionally. And even worse yet, you're working extra hours late at the office, and in your mind you justify it like, well, this is so my family can have. This is so my family can do. What they really need is you. Research shows that kids feel personally disappointed. Research shows that kids feel personal disappointment and increased levels of anxiety when they experience the distance or inaccessibility of one or both parents. I'll read that again. Research shows that kids feel personal disappointment and increased levels of anxiety when they experience the distance or inaccessibility of one or both parents. Your kids believe it's their fault when you're not there or not emotionally present with them. And that kicks me right in the throat. Your kids feel like it's their fault that you're not present. The corollary, though, that's helpful is one of the easiest ways to help your children de-stress and become less anxious is to be more present, physically and emotionally. Prioritize presence this week. Be there. Be there. Number 3, look at this week's family schedule. Make sure it reflects faith and not just inertia. Look at this week's family schedule and make sure it reflects faith and not just inertia. Hey, I get it. Like, I'm going to go home in just a few hours and we got to start making a lunch for tomorrow. I got to make sure like his crib sheet and all that is clean, and I got to make sure that my daughter has milk and all this other stuff. Like, we've got responsibilities. Does everybody have clean undies? Tomorrow's Monday. It's coming, right? Be careful, though, because you look up and you've lived week after week after week after week just getting through the week. Inertia carrying us through rather than being intentional with our schedule, rather than being intentional with our children. One of the ways the Rayburns are trying in this current season that I would encourage you is rituals. Discover and create rituals in your family. Some of you would say, oh, my kids are already gone, or my kids are 17, 18, it's too late. And I would say, no, it's not. It's not too late. For a while during COVID, Megan and I got into Modern Family. And I don't know if you noticed that the entire episode is wrapped around the end of the episode. All the adult grown children bring their kid over to the grandparents' house for dinner on Sunday night. And I started thinking, my parents and my family all live in Texas, but there's not a family with young kids out there that would not open the door if parents walked in, older parents, with a meal on Sunday night when things were crazy. Right? And just like, hey, we just want to bring you free dinner. Let's eat with the kids, and then we'll clean up and we'll leave. And No one would turn that down. It's Sunday at 7, and I'm like, are we doing Hershey Kisses for dinner tonight? What's going on? Like, come up, develop rituals. Those rituals will change as your children age, but I'm in my 40s. I'm not going to tell you what. I'm in my 40s, younger than Doug. And I would still love my parents' involvement in those ways. Right now for the Rayburns, we have Ice Cream Friday. Every Friday, I've got Mac, the baby, with me all day, and then we pick up packs at about 4:30, 5 o'clock. And if you made thumbs-up choices, which we're very generous with that category, we go to Mr. Softy. And Mom leaves the government center and meets us at Mr. Softy just after 5. And we ask, everybody goes around the table, what's something that made you happy this week and something that made you sad this week? It's a $6 ritual that my kid starts asking about on Saturday. Is it Friday yet? Is it Friday yet? Is it Friday yet? Ice cream's a sometimes food, son. Another ritual we have had some success with is fam cakes on Saturday morning. It's pancakes, but fam cakes. Come on, ride with me here. And Sundays are crazy because I'm on staff, and so I leave the house very, very early. So Saturday's like our one family weekend day where everybody's there. And so we try to stay at the house as long as possible, and no one gets to leave till we sit around the table and all have our pancakes, our fam cakes together. And we talk about what happened in the week and what we're looking forward to in the next week. These 2 rituals have been helpful in this season. Now I realize that like when my kid's like 12, he's not gonna wanna do Ice Cream Fridays. Dad, I'm lactose intolerant and I'm cool. So the ritual will change. But I can't live on inertia or I'm not gonna connect with my kids. I can't live on inertia, I'm never gonna connect with my wife. Do you know that research shows vacations create the most resilient childhood memories? Research shows vacations create the most resilient childhood memories. That makes sense. Most of us in here don't remember like our day-to-day with our family growing up, maybe, but you remember when mom and dad took us to. We remember when we went to. And research reflects that they don't need to be extravagant. It wasn't the 4-week trip to Europe. It was when dad broke out the tent in the backyard. It was when we camped on the beach. Vacations. Number 4, finally. Your words will determine your relationship. Be intentional this week. Your words will determine your relationship. Be intentional this week. I have a couple categories for this that I'm thinking through. First, casual words. Casual words tend to be the words we use of people that are serving us. How do you talk to servers? How do you talk to people in the service industry? Your kids notice that. Your kids pick up on that. How do you talk to people that work for you? How do you talk to people that you work for, especially when those people aren't around? But I also think about the things that we praise our children for. Make sure it's for character and values, not just accomplishment. If the only time our kids get hugged or feel appreciated is when they got an A or they got a second touchdown or they ran faster or had a home run, what gets praised gets repeated. And so they'll think their value lies in those things. It's more important than in our casual words we say things like, I just love that you're creative. I love that you care about people. I noticed that you noticed when she didn't have something and you gave her some of yours. One of my favorite things is that you care about other people. When you play soccer, it makes me so happy to see how happy you are. Our casual words say a great deal about what our kids mean to us, their value for us. And let me tell you a scary thing. I'm just inviting you into like Brian's dark world, right? I worry about the things that I'm really proud of for my children. I want to make sure that they're not things that I'm proud of that I want other people to see, right? But here's what I mean. We all want maybe our kids to go to a good college, but is it because we want our kids to have a great education, or we want to be able to go to the office and be like, yeah, got into Berkeley. See, son, full ride. My kid, starting quarterback. Those things speak to my insecurity as a parent and yours. I just want a great kid. I want a great human who knows he's loved, he's visible, he's seen. And he doesn't have to achieve things to have that from me. Last, intentional conversations. The days are long, the years are short. We need to help process life and disappointment and questions and hurt with our kids. That takes time. We have to find time. We have to find time. You can't make time, you can take time. to have intentional conversations. A couple weeks ago, I was buying salt pellets for our water softener at Home Depot. We have a water softener that you pour these like really heavy bags of salt in, and I usually refill mine about 3 months after it's been out of salt. So I loaded up the shopping cart. Pax and I were there with 8 bags of salt pellets. And I pay, and then I push the cart out to the car, and Pax is holding the receipt. And he says, Dad, look, seven. And they'd only charged me for 7, but I had put 8 bags in the cart. And I had this moment where I was like, they're like $5. And we're way out in the parking lot. It's the Home Depot in Oxnard on a Saturday, so you're like at the In-N-Out drive-in, right, to walk all the way in. And such a local illustration. The In-N-Out drive-in right there. And he said, Dad, look, 7. And I had this moment where I thought, just load up, let's go. Like, you're my 4-year-old, you're driving me crazy. And I thought, no. Because one day you're going to be me. You're going to steal my identity. And I want to be proud of who you are. And I could name 5 times in the last few weeks that I was not a great parent, that I made mistakes, I said something I should have, I didn't hold my temper, I didn't whatever it was. 5 times I'm like, I don't want Pax to see that, I don't want Mac to see that or remember that. This was a moment that I thought, I don't want to be embarrassed about the adult you turn into. So we loaded the 8 bags back up, went back inside, paid for it. My kid probably doesn't remember that, but I'm going to be intentional. I'm going to keep working it because he's going to steal my identity. And I want to be proud of who that kid is. Will you pray with me? If you're somebody here in the room who's raising kids right now, I want to offer you just a really big dose of grace. Because in something I've said, you have realized we are all coming up short, that we are all not investing in the right ways, at times are prioritizing the right things. So I want you right now to, one, just commit to taking the next step today. You don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to sort it all out today. We can't go back in time. We can be intentional this afternoon. We can be intentional tonight. We can get up tomorrow and be better parents than we were yesterday. Parenting is so hard. Right now, just ask God to take the next step to being an even better parent. If you're somebody in here who has adult children, pray and ask God for the creativity as to how you can support those adult children with where they're at. Pray and ask God to open your eyes to see how you can creatively still be present in their life, be an encouraging presence, to be intentional as the formation of who they are is still wet cement. Your job's not done. And last, if you're in here, you're single, you've chosen not to have children, you're an empty nester, whatever it is, ask God to open your eyes for who's in your path that you need to step into their life, because this too is your responsibility. They need your wisdom. They need to hear how God's been faithful to you. They need to hear about your mistakes and your victories. God, I realize it takes this entire tribe and community to do this work. But all of those kids that are in those rooms right now, some that are in this room with us, some that are yet to be born, God, we want to see them in this church and other churches in 20 years. We want to honor the commitment to launch these amazing rockets. God, give us insight, give us the ability to reflect, to give ourselves a lot of grace, because many of us didn't come from the healthiest of places ourselves. And by your grace, may these kids find their way to you and follow you. We pray these things in the powerful name of Jesus. Amen.